Okay, looks like we've got a pretty good group of people signed in now, so we're going to get started. So thank you everybody for joining today's call. We're going to do a roundtable today, and we're thrilled to have all of you on the call with us. We have two featured panelists today that I'd love to introduce. We have Daniel Del Olmo of Sage Hospitality, President and COO, and Sandy Gentles, Vice President of Talent Point at Marriott. And so thank you both for joining us. We've got two seasoned veterans helping us out today and going to have some great discussions. We did ask the group for any questions ahead of time. So we've got some great questions that people submitted that we're gonna read, but also, you know, hope that you guys will submit some questions as we go through that we can bring up as well. Love to introduce myself. My name is Mark Kaplan. I am the Vice President of Hospitality Partnerships here at InstaWork. And so for any of you that don't know, InstaWork is a flexible staffing tool. We are live in over 25 cities now, providing all sorts of hospitality staff to the hospitality industry, including hotels nationwide. And now in Canada, we recently launched in Vancouver and Toronto. So thank you again, everybody, for jumping on. And we're going to take a few of these questions that were submitted ahead of time to kind of launch the call. Before we start, I'd love to give Daniel and Sandy just a moment to introduce yourselves and maybe explain your roles at your respective companies. So Sandy, if you don't mind, would you love to kick us off?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on today. My role at Marriott is Vice President of Talent Point by Marriott. Our role is to help provide our franchise partners with optional HR services. As you can imagine, the last 6 or 7 months, it's really focused in on the staffing portion of it. I think, you know, as a Canadian now living in the US, I just want to make sure when you pronounce Toronto, that you just get that right so that, you know, people will feel at home when you talk about that. But yeah, we're fantastic. Very excited to be here today to talk to everybody.
Thanks so much, Sandy, and thanks for the tip. I didn't know that. Why didn't they spell it with an
A? You can't make it easy. Come on.
Funny. And Daniel, welcome. If you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Absolutely, Mark. Great to be here, and Sandy, good to see you again. And by the way, thank you for that language lesson. I apologize in advance for my accent. I may probably get not just Toronto right, but wrong, but other things, you know, incorrectly named here. I am the President and Chief Operating Officer here at Sage Hospitality, overseeing the portfolio of hotels that we have around the country of about 60 hotels. Pre-pandemic, we employed about 6,132 associates, and our credo is to enrich lives one experience at a time. We've been doing this since 1984, and there's 4 pure play companies under the enterprise. Not only do we have a hotel company, we have a restaurant company, we have a Sage Studio, which is a DNA design, branding and development company, as well as Sage Investments, which handles all of the investments that we make in our properties.
Thank you. Great introduction. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? Every business right now, not just the hospitality industry, but every business right now is struggling to find staff. I think it's no secret that everybody's hiring. You know, there's been a lot of changes in our industry. There's been a lot of statistics around, you know, how many people have left the industry. Sandy, maybe if you want to kick us off, how is Marriott responding to this crisis or this challenge? And what are some ways, or maybe a better way to say it is, what's the frame of mind or the state of affairs at Marriott and how you're looking at this labor challenge?
I mean, I think from an overall company perspective, and obviously my focus is on the franchise side, you know, our key to success really comes from our associates. And because of just this, you know, massive change we've had the last year and a half, 2 years, it's really had to make us, you know, flexible in terms of how we engage how we move associates from properties, that are having staffing issues to other ones. But I think in terms of like how we're looking at the current moment, in terms of, the staffing crisis, it's really around flexibility and making sure that we understand, what it is that those associates need. And it's not the same, right? As people that are involved in the staffing process will start to tell you, is that it's not one thing, it's not two things, it's 6 or 7 or 8 things, and it's dependent, right? It's dependent on the department, the individual, the family situation. And so being able to look at ways to get that feedback and then address that, I think is critical, but to be nimble. So just because we did things this way last week, last year, that doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be, especially if we can find, new ways from our associates, to make things more efficient. So I think it's, it's not easy. There's no silver bullet. But I think it's, it's trying different things. Arnie used to say all the time, fail quickly, right? Like try something, see if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't, let's move on.
That's great advice. And Daniel, what are, everybody's talking about the reasons for these challenges, but, when we spoke before, you had kind of highlighted that maybe there's some misconceptions around what everybody thinks is causing the challenges. So I'd love to just hear your perspective on the staffing challenges that we're facing and what some of the drivers are behind there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I think everybody may have heard the term the Great Resignation. And I think as a consequence of COVID, I think there's many people, not just here in the US, but around the world, that are reconsidering their priorities in life and are looking at work-life balance, are looking at geographic location, are looking at really what a job looks like in that mix, and if not a job, what a career looks like. And the way that we've been looking at this, Mark, is again, we've been in business since 1984, and we've had many tenured associates with us. And ultimately, it all comes down to culture. And culture is really important when things are good, but it is essential when things are not as good as clearly we've all experienced over the course of the last 18 months, certainly in this industry. And so we have doubled down on Or You Belong, which is effectively our culture platform, which was really focused around 3 pillars: energizing hearts, engaging minds, and encouraging success. And for each and every single one of these pillars, we provided our teams at the property level with all the tools, with the resources, with funds to essentially engage and nurture our existing associates, bring them back, post furlough as we were able to, and ramp back up, which we all did painstakingly so over the course of the last couple of months. And then that, obviously, as you think about referrals, whether it's referrals through our associates or referrals through guests, that was definitely a source for us to attract talent that was aligned with the culture that we'll continue to build upon. So Sandy and team, obviously we've been doing business with Marriott for many years. We have 22 Marriott properties in our portfolio, 60, and so work very closely together. And so obviously there's great tools, but ultimately without the culture, it doesn't really matter. And that's really ultimately when you think about the Great Resignation, people are looking for a place that they want to belong to.
Couldn't agree more. I think it's really pointed to what we're all dealing with right now, and it makes a lot of sense. What are some things that you do at Sage that helps create that culture or remind people of that culture? Is it something that you talk about in every meeting? Is it something that, actions speak louder than words? Or what are some ways that you guys emphasize your culture?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think all of our leaders model the behavior that is really at the forefront. Our guests are at the center of everything we do, and with that, our associates come first. And again, our leaders, whether it's our managers at the hotels or restaurant managers, they live by this credo of enriching lives one experience at a time. We continue to communicate the importance of this, and then on a very regular cadence provide either updates. We recognize associates. We have a women leadership spotlight that we started to really highlight emerging talent across the organization. Again, as I mentioned, we provide funds to our properties to really, provide the opportunity for each one of the teams to do events. We actually, in some cases, have mandated time off. Managers and above here in the organization enjoy what we call the independent plan, which is take time as you need it. For those that didn't feel comfortable through COVID, we actually have discussions and said, look, we believe it's important for you and your family to take time. And so we're going to mandate taking time off once a quarter. We're going to have your back. We're going to make sure that you're covered so you don't feel forced to be working while you're off. So it's a multitude of levers that we pull, Mark, both at the home office, the regional level, the field level, and then again, allow each one of the properties to implement the initiatives that they believe are necessary for their respective team members.
That's great. Yeah, it's something that I don't know. I think all companies talk about culture and want it to be important, but not every company is able to truly deliver on it. And I don't know how many people are really making that at the forefront of their decisions of how they deal with these staffing challenges that we have right now. And it's probably a great missing piece that you've kind of highlighted there that companies should really be considering and talking about when they try to figure out how to staff up in this environment. Sandy, Marriott obviously has a great culture and a reputation for having a great culture. What are there any things you can share from your side that Marriott's doing to help support culture and maybe to the franchise community?
I mean, I think, Daniel brought up some great points, and I think, there's things that happen from a top-down perspective, but, there's very important things that are happening, from a bottoms-up perspective. So I think it's fun to give some very specific examples just to highlight sort of some of the things that we're seeing. So, we're seeing, some videos coming down that are from the top leadership in terms of like, what are the things that we're aiming for to help with the associates in this particular quarter, but it's even down to some highlights from the individual properties of examples of some guests stepping above and beyond their role, and where they have video of that. And so you see the doorman helping people whose bags have fell down and stuff is like sprayed all over the front lobby. They're picking that up, and then you have the front desk agents coming out to help them. There's a birthday, that where the family has come in for the birthday. A birthday cake shows up from the kitchen at the front desk as they're checking in. There's all these ways that the associates are still stepping up and beyond what they would normally be responsible for, and trying to highlight how much of an impact that has on the guest experience and overall in the company. And I think from a property perspective, we've talked to a lot of, especially on the F&B side, where, because the kitchens, are running a different, different numbers these days, they've been able to take some of that allocation and, they have an associate, meal that happens during the shift. And then they provide food for the associate to take home for their family, to be able to provide a meal for their family. So we're looking, beyond just, the typical levers like pay, to be able to help with, what are the other things that we can do as a hospitality company to help these associates.
It's a great point. And I love the example of, sharing food for them to take for their family. Now, it's obviously something that not everybody can do in every situation, right? But sure, it's a unique way of making those associates feel valued. Yeah. So one thing that keeps coming up is, there seems to be a lack of hospitality staff. Morale can be low at the properties because you're short-staffed and these people are working so hard. How are you, and Daniel, I'll start with you for this question. How are you, or where are you looking to other industries or other pools to find staff? And then how are you implementing them to be successful if they don't have the typical experience that maybe you would have found a couple of years ago, getting people that have hotel experience? Have you had to redo your training programs or anything like that?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, what I'd say, Mark, is that we're not just focused on recruiting people that obviously meet the profile and fit with the culture in line with our values and philosophy, but we're actually really focusing on making sure that our associates, now 4,700 and counting, feel like they belong, feel like we are taking care of them, because like you said, we have people at all levels, whether you're a general manager or your front desk or your engineer, that are today and for a long period of time have been doing, double duty, whether it's double shifts, triple shifts, or have been really taking on and absorbing more roles, much more beyond their existing roles, right? And so that's critical. So as a result of that, we're actually recruiting from within. We've recognized that we have an incredible amount of utility players that are talented and eager to grow beyond their existing function, and now they can grow into another function. And that creates a career path that before perhaps might have taken a little bit longer or might not have been recognized for that particular associate. So I'd say that's one. Two, as it relates to recruiting from the outside, we've, as all our fellow colleagues across the industry, we've been having a really tough time to recruit. We have about 1,000 open positions. I think last I checked, it's down to about 900 or so. And the reality is we are very open to looking at talent from other industries. We then bring those associates in and we immerse them in the company, we immerse them in the brand that they may be associated with, we immerse them in the property that they will be working with. And so the notion is there are probably not a lot of industries that we say we're not interested in attracting people from. Ultimately, it's really more about the profile and the fit with the organization, regardless of their skill. And as Maya Angelou said, it's really not about how what you say or what you do. It's how you make people feel. And that intangible comes with people regardless of their expertise, regardless of their industries, right? Because ultimately we're in the experience business, we're in the humanity and compassion business, we're in the people business. So that comes regardless of your expertise.
Awesome, thank you. Sandy, similar question for you. What are you seeing as some unique strategies right now to attract talent, and where do you suggest people should be looking to find the right fit?
One of the key things, and again, Daniel brought up this amazing point around culture, is right now we're experiencing a very big demand in the hourly space. It's very hard for all the companies to find those associates. So it's no longer this hotel competing against that hotel down the street. Now you're competing against everybody in that street. McDonald's, Starbucks, Target, Bank of America, everybody's competing for the same. And I think one of the key things is being able to offer a stickiness that is more than just what am I doing in that shift? Like, I'm here for 8 hours, this is the pay rate, right? Like, being able to showcase. And I think one of the key things about that culture piece is being able to define what does a career progression in hospitality look like? So that's great. You're starting off in this position here. Maybe you're a concierge, front desk, housekeeper, but look where we can go from here, and being able to showcase that piece, I think, is extremely, and being able to look at, again, just because we did it that way before doesn't mean that we have to do it that way again. So if we have somebody that's interested in coming on property, and they don't have childcare support Monday through Wednesday, they have it on Thursday, Friday. Fantastic, right? Like, we'll have you come in and we'll do these hours for those days, and we can adjust them for these days, and just finding a way to be flexible in that scheduling piece for it to work. Or maybe it's helping fill in some gaps in terms of the particular time periods where we know, especially now with leisure being the biggest part of the travel, that the Thursday, the Friday, the Saturday is going to be difficult. And I think the other thing that we're looking at is the type of work support that we're getting. So we have sort of the way we did things before, where we had full-time associates, we had pre-vetted partnerships with temp staffing companies, and I think we're looking beyond that piece. And I think what Daniel said was great, which is it's not just looking for a very particular type of associate, it's looking for someone that can fit in with that particular group and environment to be successful. And it might be, somebody that comes in just for, that peak check-in or check-out period, and maybe they're only there for an hour or two during that particular time, if that's what their schedule allows. A lot of workers right now are looking for the ability to fit in work around the schedule when they have availability. And those are the gig workers that are trying to fit those particular pieces. And the properties, while we may not have the infrastructure to be able to do that right today, a lot of our temp partners do have that ability. So for us, we can leverage those workers to be able to help us in those times where we see those peaks, and in different ways. I mean, I talked to a GM who was telling me that his valets are the best room strippers and vacuum cleaners he's ever seen, and they're leveraging them during the day to help support the housekeeping team. So it's, again, being able to think outside of what we're currently doing, making it an interesting place for them so that they feel more than just the rate at what they're working at, that it is, a career, I think, is very important.
A ton of great points, and thank you. And obviously you highlighted on a couple of things there that are near and dear to my heart. Being a flexible staffing company, temp staffing company, and I promise I didn't pay Sandy to bring those up, but he brought up some great points around, the market is different. Before, where a hotel may have said you've got to have availability 7 days a week, we're going to schedule you when we need you. Now, businesses are, and not just hotels, but businesses in general, are having to say, when are you available? Okay, we'll make it work because we need the help. And so obviously, as a flexible staffing company, that's really where we add value. Is we have a network of people that you can plug in at peak times or different times. And I think there's a lot going on, everyone will agree, in the hotel industry right now, where the 2-3 day stay leisure travel has really grown, and you have these increases of demand. So one of the things I heard Sandy say, and Daniel, I'm curious your perspective on it, is people might not be looking for one job for a period of time, right? Like, they like the flexibility. And another piece of flexibility on top of just the scheduling piece is the work. And so a lot of we call the workers on our platform pros or professionals, but a lot of our pros enjoy doing one job today and a different job tomorrow, and then next week coming back and maybe doing a third. So curious, Daniel, from your perspective, are you guys more open to or entertaining using people in different positions, exactly how Sandy just described the example? Maybe today they work as a valet, and it could even be during their shift or on another shift. Maybe they can help in housekeeping or get exposure to food and beverage or any other department.
Absolutely. And in fact, I think we've started to certainly not only experienced that by necessity as a result of COVID with our existing team and associates across the portfolio. But it's actually been something that I think has allowed for really more career pathing for our existing team members. And then also as we think about sort of the temporary staffing aspect of it, first of all, our GMs and the ones that excel the most are those that really embrace the notion of a holistic team, regardless of whether you're full-time and you're focused on one role and one role alone, or you have a desire, whether it's through part-time or temp staffing, to really do more things. Ultimately, we are stronger as one, and we leverage the talents of everyone. And frankly, nowadays, I think it is critical to ensure for continuity, for retention, and frankly, for growth, both at the team level and at the associate level, to allow for that flexibility and embrace it. And so as we think about our pros, if you will, we embrace the notion that they may be coming in for a specific discipline, but as they get to know their team, their fellow colleagues, as they get to know the hotel, as they get to know the restaurant, they may be interested in something else. And so what I tell you is that we very much motivate our team members to really look to grow within the organization, because we have nearly 13,000 rooms and 60 hotels across the country. That allows for flexibility, it allows for mobility as well, where as you know, many people have been moving around the country. We want to provide that flexibility in addition to the flexibility that happens at each and every single business unit or property, if you will. But no, I think the ability to have a hybrid model and flexibility, I think, is going to be critical going forward. And clearly, I think InstaWork has identified that, and that's a key component that will be necessary for us in the industry going forward.
Thank you. When when you're driving down the highway right now, you constantly see billboards that say hiring, sign-on bonus, retention bonus. There's all kinds of things that people are throwing out right now to try to attract staff. And Sandy, maybe you can field this one. Just curious, what are you hearing from the franchise community around things that are working and maybe things that aren't working as well? If you can share any insight around that.
It's funny. We the first, when we started talking about this, the first thing that came up was, wow, I used to get so many great qualified candidates from the job boards, whichever ones that they were using, and then all of a sudden it's just dropped off. And it's become very apparent, you don't have to go online. Your friend is going to call you when their rate goes to $18 to $19, or they implement a signing bonus and a referral bonus. Like, these candidates, their friends are going to call them. And I think it goes back to, and I'm sure they say this at Sage, right? The best housekeeper comes as a referral from another housekeeper. So I think, we're having to look, differently in terms of how we're getting the opportunities, to that group. And it's changed. We're waiting to see from a data perspective, if we're going to go all in on one particular one. I think, it's always nice to have, some flexibility in terms of what we're using to get those candidates in. The bonuses, are there right now. And in some markets, you have to do it to be competitive to the other groups. We're much more, we've seen a lot of success in the and the referral bonus that goes to the existing associate that refers somebody that stays for a certain amount of time. Because they have a pretty good idea of, who would fit in with the role and with the company, with the property. So, that's worked really well. I think, we've seen same day pay functionality work extremely well. We've actually seen an increase of 40% where properties are using that from a retention perspective. And then again, like talking about this, flexibility where, hey, listen, on Wednesdays I have to leave at this time, or, if I could pick up extra shifts. So we've done some interesting things with complexing, where we have a property across the street or down the road. What does that look like if an associate wants to, work at both places? But again, I think sometimes the limiting factor behind that can be technology. How do we have finance track somebody who's at a courtyard from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., but then goes to a Renaissance from, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. But once you can figure that piece out, it gives you that ability to be flexible. I think the one thing I wrote down when Daniel said they use the guests to refer people as well. That's really good. I like that.
Yeah, I agree. And Daniel, maybe you can just expand on that if you're having any luck with that.
Oh yeah, listen, at this point, we have and continue to try every single creative tactic to get people to entertain us. And I was with one of our GMs a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned that one of the ways that was very effective is that the team would go to a local taco shop because that's where a lot of potential folks were at. And so we were basically buying tacos. And frankly, what's interesting about it is it's a very informal way and a very human way to connect. I get you a taco, let's have a conversation. And by the way, it's a taco stand, or it's a restaurant where associates are at. And so it really engenders a natural conversation as opposed to a forced conversation through the natural channels. I would say that's one. Two, as it relates to guests, we figure that if you're staying with us or if you're dining with us, hopefully that's a good experience. That's certainly what we aim every single time. And hopefully, if you think it's good enough for you, it might be good enough for someone in your network that is looking for a job, either starting from a different industry or within the industry. And as a result, we've basically been providing, I think it's $100 or a couple $100 referral bonuses to our guests. And again, we still have 900 open positions. So to me, that's just one sliver. And I think Sandy said it best early on when we started this conversation. There's not one single silver bullet. You really have to spread it out and be very mindful of the market. Be very mindful of how you can differentiate yourself, and really stay true to who you are, and be honest and upfront. And then also, I think the other tactic to us is, what are some of the real perks and benefits that matter? Not just great health benefits, because that's sort of like the point of entry in many ways, and the independent plan that allows for more flexibility and 4-day work week and all of those good things. But how can we, if someone is not sure about the industry, and particularly today, if you think about the last 18 months, the hospitality industry wasn't one that was looked at as, this especially early on, one that I want to bet my horse on. So if that's the case, why don't we say, and actually we've sent out some messages like this, make a pit stop with us in your career. You may not have figured out that hospitality is for you, but let us be a stop along the journey. Allow us to give you an opportunity and then see where you go. And we have plenty of examples of people that have been able to grow in a very non-linear fashion to the most senior levels of the organization. And so that's just, I think we need to be mindful of the fact that people are looking for an opportunity and looking to be heard. And I think that connection, genuine human connection, I think in a business that is all about people is essential, especially today.
Yeah, great point. And it's true, right? I think there is some fear, right, of people thinking, okay, when COVID hit, hospitality was so dramatically impacted, do I want to run right back into that, or is it time to explore other ones? So it's a great point. And thank you for bringing it up. How are people dealing today with the ups and downs and the different type of business? I think I touched on it earlier, where in years past you had a more steady occupancy percentage, and right now it's kind of up and down and up and down. Or Sandy, maybe you can field this one. Are you seeing a higher reliance on just temp labor, or are there other strategies that people are using to deal with those peaks?
So I think it's a little bit different since we just came through the summer season. So I think we saw a combination of the leisure travel. I want to get out of the house, and I want to bring my family, and we're going to go for 1, 2, or 3 nights. I think that increasingly we're still seeing a lot of places that are near water, near mountains, that are not in city centers as sort of safe to go for a longer stay. So our occupancy has been extremely high in those type of areas. And then we're starting to see a lot of businesses offer this to their associates, and then Marriott help educate the travelers. Hey, listen, there's nothing wrong with flying the family out to this property on the Wednesday, working Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday you're taking off at the property and enjoying all of the social components of that with the family. So it's combining both of those pieces, which I think will be really interesting to see sort of how that works. But what this is fueling is the worker needs. And I think one of the things we've tried to do to be sensitive to the most vulnerable department, which is housekeeping. I mean, it's the hardest job in any of the properties in the industry. Is there's no room cleaning before checkout unless you request it specifically, and then it can be arranged. But I think that's a major departure from what we would typically do. I know a lot of guests, especially ones that are providing feedback, want to see more of that back in terms of having more of that available. But again, it goes to what you're saying. So how do we, knowing at least, and instead of having a month or 2 months of the bookings, it's like 2 or 3 days. So it's not a lot of time for us to be able to respond from a staffing perspective. So it's keeping, making sure that we're not having attrition in the full-time associates that have been doing such an incredible job, really carrying the property on their backs, making sure that we keep them, and then supplementing them in the specific areas where we know, maybe we have an event this weekend, so the F&B outlets are going to be bigger. Maybe it's a select service property and it's going to be, a rush at the front desk at 3:30. So how do we, and it's the partners that we've established. So it's the temp staffing partners, it's the gig workers. And I think being able to have, a number of different partners that can help. And I think it's some of them are more specialized than others. Some people have a group of, people that may have Friday available. And so those are made available to you. So great. As long as it doesn't require a ton of training, we can bring them in. Whereas other vendors have a much more specific skill set in key areas. Like, I mean, the number of calls I get for chefs, like it's very hard to find somebody last minute to jump in that area. Bartenders, So I think, being able to have those options and relationships in advance to make sure that you can leverage that when you see the occupancy go up. And the second that you see that go up, make that phone call is key. We've offered the same day pay functionality to our temp vendors as well. So, again, they're getting options, right? Of which gig that they can go on for the night. We're trying to make it more impactful for them to come to the property.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you touched on, Sandy, that just to give the staffing vendor perspective on is those short-term needs, right? When you need them at the last minute, all of a sudden you realize I need, room attendants, or I need housekeeping or chefs or whatever it is. And, one of the best things that I think properties can do to be able to leverage flexible staffing companies like ours and traditional staffing companies that you might use as well is to figure out how to supplement labor in the easiest place to put them in. So, needing a skilled line cook the day of or the day before is probably way harder than needing a prep cook that can support someone else. And same thing when it comes to housekeeping, it may be difficult for staffing companies to have 10 trained room attendants that can clean 16 rooms or a full board, the day before. But what most people do have are people that can work, right? They can strip beds, just like the example of the valet folks, or help, and with laundry or whatever else it is. So I think that's an interesting way to utilize temp staffing companies a little smarter, is when you can, try to put them in that lower skilled position, get them in the door, get them working, and then identify the ones that you think are a good fit, and then invest more time and training in the right people versus, hoping that they're going to be available for you on super short notice and have all that training already.
And be a good partner. Like, they show up, thank you for coming. Obviously, if they don't have the training in there, we'll figure out a way to still make them feel comfortable and be able to help with what's going on. I think is really key, because they're going to make, whether they're going to come back or not is going to depend on that one-time experience, and it may be stressful at the time, right? And so you're trying to bring in people, they're not easily up to speed. That's okay, right? But let's make sure that we can continue these longer-term relationships, because if that person's available now, then there's a higher chance that they have more of a flexible schedule. We can bring them back later. We want to make sure that they have a good experience on property.
For sure. So we're about 15 minutes away from the hour, and I just want to remind folks, if you do have any questions, feel free to submit those in the Q&A channel on the bottom of the screen there. That happy to ask any questions to our panelists that you have out there. One other question I wanted to ask, and Daniel, we'll flip over to you, is if you can share any new technologies that maybe you're testing out or have been using that might help the group. We'd love to hear, whether they're personnel related or other, just any technology that you guys are embracing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are many technology solutions that enable the workforce to become, I say, more effective. And one of those that we are testing across a component of our portfolio is a tool called Hotel Effectiveness, which is a labor productivity and scheduling tool. And what's really interesting is that if you're in a market where you have several hotels, in our case, say DC, Washington, DC, and there's 5 or 6 properties that are in that market, we can actually look at the existing associate pool, identify who is available to work shifts across the properties, and essentially shift those team members from one property to another based on the availability that we see in the system. And that's a relatively recent new technology component that they added in as a result of the significant need for flexibility. And so I think again, as we think about technology going forward, at the switch a click or a button. The ability for an associate to be able to control their schedule and as a result their lives, I think is going to really set the tone for the industry. And mind you, that is a seismic shift from where we have been living as an industry for a long time. And so we are being very careful to test these solutions out, really learn the ins and outs, get the feedback from both our property teams, our GMs, and the teams, that the leaders that are actually using these tools on a regular basis, and also do the same thing from an associate perspective. So more to come on that. Hopefully I can share some more insights on that as we get through this beta pilot that we're doing.
That was great. Sandy, same question to you. I know you interface with a lot of vendors in your role, and everybody able to help the franchise community connect with vendors. So curious what cool technologies you're seeing out there that we should all be looking at.
I mean, I think one of the ones that has been really critical for us is our partnership with Beekeeper, and Beekeeper is an hourly communications tool. So it enables us, whether you're a department lead, a property lead, a area lead, or a corporate, to be able to push out messaging to the hourly associates directly to their phone. It translates immediately to over 100 languages, and they can respond. For us, having that during the beginning of the pandemic enabled us to keep in touch with a lot of associates that were furloughed, and make sure that we kept in very close contact with them. But it also enables us, as we're bringing on new associates, to get them up to speed quickly in terms of the ramping up piece, the learning piece, then all those things that you just have to check the box on when you're coming on board in a property. I think another big one we have is the same day pay functionality. I think that's really critical to be able to differentiate the properties. And we have a great partnership with Rewardian, which is a technology that enables associates and everybody on property to reward each other with points for things that they've been doing. So you can, instead of having to wait for the next stand up to recognize somebody, you can do it in the moment. And the points are redeemable through like an actually cool catalog. So like, even whatever I think is cool is not even as cool as what they have, because it's cooler than that. So it's been extremely, I think, helpful, because again, being able to reward, I think, people really is important in these times right now.
Very cool, thank you. And so, just to plug a little bit of technology of how we work at InstaWork, for anyone on the call that hasn't seen our platform, obviously we're happy to show it to you as a follow-up to this, but we give a lot of transparency to the partners that we work with. So when a hotel uses InstaWork, they're able to see in real time how orders are filling up. So if you're putting in an order for 5 associates or 10 associates, leading up to the days that you need them, day and days that you need them, you'll see in real time whether those shifts are filled. You can drill down into the people that are coming to that shift and see where they've worked in the past, what their average rating is, how many times they've worked with us. We'll share with you their phone numbers, and you can text them and call them through our platform. So, we are really trying to fill that niche of flexible staffing right now in the hospitality industry. And we've got a big pool of pros out there looking to work with great companies like both Sage and Marriott, and, the community that's on the call today listening. So we hope that you'll check us out in the future. And that's the only shameless plug I'll give.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, we, and Daniel said this before, we're making sure to vet everything. We're trying all kinds of different ways to resolve this, and some things work and some things don't work, and that's okay. We've had a really, really good experience with InstaWork, especially for us. The focus on the F&B areas has really been helpful. It's an area that's, you know, a lot harder for us to generally fulfill. And the notes I'm getting from GMs is, you know, they show up on time and they have the experience that their, you know, CV says they have. So, you know, we don't have, and we know like this person's got 1 year, 2 years, like how much we have to, you know, spend time with them before they start. And the thing that, you know, that was, I think, major in terms of the feedback is, you know, wow, we're getting people taking, you know, the same people taking multiple shifts at the same time from the property. So when they spend that time getting them up to speed with the processes, the people, all that stuff, that they don't have to do that a second time when they come back, which has been great, I think.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Sandy. So I think that we're a couple minutes short of the hour, but I think it's probably a good time to just kind of summarize and close up. So I just really wanted to thank everybody who joined. I especially wanted to thank Sandy and Daniel for participating today. And we are happy to share this video after the call if you want to share it with any of your colleagues. If you did have any follow-up questions, feel free to still submit those to us, and we'd be happy to send out a response to everybody. But just give you guys a second to close if there's anything you'd like to add or say. Daniel, if you wanted to go first.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Mark, for having us and for everybody here joining us. I think this is an incredibly exciting, while challenging, incredibly exciting time in the industry. We're essentially rebuilding, and that allows us to strengthen our foundations. And there is no more important asset resource that we have than people. And so establishing the right foundation, having the right culture, and then working with people such as yourself that allow for technology to enable what we do best, which is enriching lives one experience at a time. That's what it's all about. So thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And Sandy?
Yeah, I think, you know, first of all, it's been great. I've heard from a lot of people in advance of the call, just from the word going out that we were going to be on today. Obviously, it was Daniel that was the draw, but that's okay.
I doubt it. I doubt it. I doubt it.
But like Daniel says, I think one of the key things that we're starting to see now is, you know, there will be impacts, whether it's, you know, flu, whether it's another variant, you know, there will be impacts, but we're already seeing bookings up. We're seeing business travel up. We're seeing conferences up. And I think, you know, that enables us to, you know, really be able to deliver good employment experiences for people across, you know, a number of different channels, whether it's select service, full service, lifestyle. There's all these very interesting, and there's all these new brands that have come out, you know, in the last year and a half that I think people are interested to go out and see, which has been great. So we're just, you know, I think we're in the same boat where we're very excited to see where it goes. I think, you know, obviously our new tagline is here to stay. So I think that's it, what we're doing.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. And again, we will share the recording of the video. And thank you all for participating, and have a great rest of your day.